announcement.
Right, which, I don't know what that does. I've heard deputies say that they're not gonna track people down based on a picture. But if there were deputies in the park, or those, the COPs in the park, I think that would help cut it down while we're working on a longer-term solutions. I think sober homes are a problem. Not in general, but I think when drug rehabilitation is done strictly for profit, that's a problem. And that's also a longer-term solution, and I know that the current council, the commission is working on that now, but I think.
Next question?
But I had, discussed to both of you, these things have been going on for a long time, prostitution, selling drugs, they've been going on, and we don't seem to, the improvement is so slow that it's impossible to see. So, I don't know what we're gonna do to improve this and get it to a state where people feel comfortable going to the parks or just walking down the street.
Mr. Maxwell, 1 minute.
Okay, thank you. You're right, and really, when you think about prostitution specifically and similar issues like that, how do I say this? Prostitution is a symptom of a bigger problem. It's a symptom of a bigger problem, okay? It's a symptom of poverty. It's a symptom of blighted neighborhoods, okay? And it's also a symptom of the prostitutes themselves and the folks that are in that industry have what they call prostitution, the oldest profession on earth. Well, I guess they've really got it down to a science because they're always one step ahead of law enforcement because they know exactly what the laws are and exactly how far they can go. So it's a cat and mouse game, and there's no easy answer for that. But I will tell you the solution, long term, is let's clean up the neighborhoods. Let's do something about the unemployment. We have double-digit unemployment here in Lake Worth. Let's do something about the poverty. Let's provide job opportunities for people to get the job so that we don't have 30% poverty. Let's provide better jobs for the folks that feel desperate enough that they got to go out and have a few beers and get drunk and do crazy things they wouldn't normally do, and they hook up with the hooker.
Thank you.
Am I done already?
Yes,
Oh,
sorry.
sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it is the oldest profession, and the way that people have been trying to take care of it for decades, centuries, is to arrest their way out of it, and that hasn't worked. I think, for me, if people who are renting homes or people who are just passing through Lake Worth aren't going to have as much pride in their neighborhoods as people who own their homes or are planning on spending a lot of time here. And I think making it easier for people to be able to afford homes would be one way to clean up neighborhoods because people would take care of their neighborhood. I know when me and my friends, I don't own my home, but when me and my friends see something going on in front of our house, we go out there and we yell at people. And when we see disputes, we go out there and we try to solve the disputes. And that, to me, that solves it. Because a lot of people complained last night that when they call the police don't come in time. Because the police have to actually see the crime being committed. But we can go out there and we can see the crime being committed and tell them to get away from our house and take their picture. Yeah, and I think we need to have more jobs. We need to encourage, just like we need to encourage home ownership, we need to encourage small business ownership. There's a lot of people who, if they had the opportunity to do it, would start a small business. I never thought I'd be someone that wanted to do that. When I saw the opportunity to do that, because I was fortunate enough, I did it. And that not only gave me self-esteem, being able to run my own business, being able to be a boss, things like that, but it also gave me more pride in my surroundings.
Thank you.
Yeah. Mr. Hartman mentioned that 3 of our commissioners went to a climate change conference in Key West and that he would talk to 2 of 3 of them. And I wonder why you wouldn't talk to all 3 of them. And to further that question, using your peace and conflict resolution background, how would you work to heal the divide, the political divide in the city?
The first part, I just assume that if I asked Scott for advice on how to win this election, he wouldn't help me. And that's totally up to him.
Pretty good.
What was the second part? Oh, how would I bridge the gap? I think...
Do you think there is a gap?
I definitely think there's a gap, yeah. Okay. I think a lot of the people I hang out with are very left of center. A lot of the people I see in city commission meetings, for example, are pretty right of center. I feel like I can have conversations with both those people. I think there's things, like, okay, if people all the way to the left want to attract homeless people here and spend all the city's money to provide services for them, and people all the way on the other side want to just arrest all of them and get them out of the city, how come we've never sat down and talked? How come we go there and one side gets up there and says, homeless people are disgusting, they poop everywhere, and these anarchists are trying to invite them all down here, and the other side gets up there and says the opposite. Why are we going up there and complaining about each other? Why can't we sit down? Why can't we have summits? The mayor has said a couple times that she was going to call summits, and we haven't had that yet.
I have a question. My biggest concern with all of your speeches that I've heard and being around and listening to is your enthusiasm to tell us how you've been all over the place, but to me, as somebody who's been and who's very much invested in this town, as a homeowner and business owner, all I hear from you is that, when I hear that, is that you have not put your foundation into one particular area, that you haven't said, okay, this is where I want to make my home. You bounce around a lot, so what's to make me as a voter say, this is the person I want to give my vote to, when you don't even really have any roots anywhere to look to?
It's true. I mean, I have roots in New Jersey. I was there for 25 years. In the 11 years since then, I spent 9 of those 11 years in one place, where I went to college, I owned a business, I volunteered at a radio station, I volunteered at a farm, I owned part of a bookstore. I still have dozens of friends back there. After 10 years there, I did think it was time for a change. If we want to get personal, I got a divorce and I wanted to start fresh. So I came to Florida, and everything I heard about Florida wasn't good, but when I got here, I don't know, there's just something about not only warm weather in the wintertime, but the people. Like, it's just such a strange mix of like people who are familiar to me because I grew up in New Jersey, and I can't go more than 2 blocks without seeing a car with New Jersey plates. So I feel like this is a place for people who have, there's a lot of people here who have lived here for their entire lives, and there's a lot of people who have traveled a lot and now live here. There's a lot of people who retired and then moved down here, and so I think I'm not psychic, but I'm ready to stay here for the long term. I would buy a house here. I would continue to operate my business here. I don't want to leave.
Anybody else?
You acknowledge that the city's great. Are you aware that Scott's a big reason that it's so great? The impact he's had on it?
Sure. I mean, I don't think he's an evil person. I don't think he became city commissioner so he could destroy the city. I think the city's been around for quite a while, 130 years or so. We have 5 city commissioners. We've had a number of city commissioners over those years. Scott has done good things, Scott has done bad things, and just like most commissioners.
Yes, I have a question about law enforcement. 2.5 months ago, she posted on Facebook that all cops are bastards, but it seems like Florida cops are a special breed. How would you work with PBSO or any law enforcement agencies or the city if that is your perception of law enforcement, which a lot of people fought very hard 4 years ago to keep PBSO in the city because they had done a lot to get rid of the gangs and things that have gone on in the city?
I'm not gonna lie and say I think cops are great. I'm angry at what's been happening, especially over the past couple of years with the amount of police murders. I posted that on Facebook right after Corey Jones was shot and killed. Since then, I've had conversations with Captain Bauer. I don't remember his name, but I've had conversations with him. He's a human being. He's said to me that the job isn't easy, that when he arrests people, then people criticize him. When he doesn't arrest people, people criticize him. And I think police, more often than anybody else, abuse their power because they're put in a position where they have more power than anybody else. They have guns, they have the power to put people in cages. But at this point in time, I couldn't picture a place without police. Like, I think if we removed the police from Lake Worth right now, there would be chaos.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
Sorry for my children's loudness. worth since 2006, that's, well, 2004, that's all of my adult life, 'cause I'm only 30 now. I purchased a home in 2012 through Habitat for Humanity. I'm not sure if you've noticed, but South D Street was completely blighted and very dark. Now, I've been to several city commissions, not lately, but my whole idea was that the streets were too dark. There was violence, prostitution, gunshots, and a lot of other things. The only person, now I may not agree with everything that Mr. Maxwell does, but the only person who listened to me was Mr. Maxwell. Mr. McBoy also, he was really for lighting, but it's because of his internal push to get us the lights that you see all the lights adorned in rural Poinciana. How would you relate to somebody who has to walk in the dark to take her children to school if you don't live in this area?
I do. I live on 7th and F on the south side.
F north,
South.
south.
So there's gunshots a couple times a month. There's been dead bodies in our alleyway. There's prostitution. I can't walk a block without somebody offering me drugs. My girlfriend can't go out at night because people try to drag her into their car. And multiple other women that I know that live in that area get harassed constantly by cars driving by that people try to bring them into their cars.
But what have you done? Do you do PBSO, COP nightly patrols like I do? Do you participate in the neighborhood cleanups once a month? Do you come to the neighborhood commissions? Do you come to our neighborhood? I know Memorial Park doesn't have an active neighborhood association, but what are you doing?
I'm out in the community. Like I said before, if we see something happen, there's been fights between what I perceived were sex workers and pimps, and we've gone out and broken up those fights. When we hear gunshots, we go out there and we try to make sure people are okay. We clean up our street almost twice, 3 times a week because we clean it up and then the next day there's broken bottles everywhere, there's mattresses in the middle of the road. I'm not in a position where I'm starting to get there now, but I'm not in a position where I'm public, where I'm sitting somewhere and everyone has my contact information. But you can take my cards and next time you have a problem, call me and you can see what I'll do. I'll be responsive because I believe that the best way to make a neighborhood safer and better is to talk to your neighbors. And it would be great if you saw something happening in your neighborhood and you could call your neighbors and your neighbors came out there and helped you. And I mean, that's what I want to do. I can give you my phone number, you can call me.
Thank you. Any other questions? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
There's some issues with that, and we work as a neighborhood association. We do cleanup, we meet once a month, we meet in between doing things and trying to work with the community. The issues in the community, it sounds very nice what you're saying, but we have a diverse community. Some of the people in our community are illiterate. They can't even read if we send them notices. Sometimes we have to work through their children in order to communicate. Now, to draw those people and to draw the whole community into our arms so we have a solid unity, how do you do that?
Again, I think talking to people. I think when you see your neighbor outside, talk to them. When you see a problem going on, confront it. And it's something that takes time, but I've lived in places where I lived in apartment complexes where almost everyone had each other's phone numbers. So when there was a problem, we were all involved. And I think neighborhood associations are great too. I don't think there's any one answer to anything. I think things need to be confronted from a number of angles in order to accomplish anything.
Thank you. You had a question, sir?
Yeah, I wanted to ask for both candidates. In the last few years, what would you say your most successful community service or event has been, and what thing have you done for the community at large that you're most proud of?
Mr. Maxwell?
You want a specific event or an initiative, or can you be more specific?
Whatever you feel has been one of your best accomplishments or achievements or most important things you've done in public service over the last several years.
Okay. I think that's relatively easy for me to answer. First of all, Lake Worth is so blessed to have 17 or 18 neighborhood associations that cover virtually every inch, just about every inch of this community, which is unprecedented anywhere in Palm Beach County. In fact, I just had a conversation today with Palm Beach County, bringing a tour in about bus, and we're all gonna get on a bus, and we're gonna ride through the neighborhoods of Lake Worth and talk about all the great work these neighborhood associations have done and the grants they've achieved.
Mary wants us to make signs.
That's right. And my point is, I have been a real big, I consider myself to be a real big part of supporting that effort over the years. There was a time where City Hall wasn't terribly favorable of neighborhood associations, to the point where they didn't want them to put up banners on the streetlights, or didn't want them to give presentations to the commission. So in terms of community, I think that's a big accomplishment. I certainly have attended, I can't tell you how many neighborhood association meetings that I glean my information, I talk to individuals and take these issues back. On an economic perspective, one of my goals was to reduce the cost of electricity in this city because we were perceived to have the highest electric rates on planet Earth. And the reality is we've done that over the last 5 years. We've gotten down our electric rates down to the point where we're within striking distance of FP&L. There are 39 electric utilities in the state of Florida. We are 4th cheapest, and we're one budget cycle away from potentially being the cheapest in the state of Florida. And I'm most proud of that because one of the things we need in this city is people to come in, as Mr. Hartman said, we need new families to come in and buy homes. But if they're constantly thinking that Lake Worth's got the highest utilities, they can't afford it, they're not going to buy those homes. So we're going to change that narrative, we're going to change that conversation, we're going to promote the fact that it is a great place to live, and it's very cost effective to live here.
Thank
So-
you.
That goes quick.
Oh, he's got a hand.
I think my specialty is community organizing. When I lived in New Jersey, my next door neighbor's husband died in the 9/11 attacks, and I worked with my roommates and all my other neighbors to make sure her needs were being met while she was going through her rough time. When I lived in Portland, a neighbor across the street had her 12-year-old daughter die. I worked with other people who lived there to organize a block party to raise money to help her pay her bills. One of the less popular, but I think just as successful things has been providing food and clothing to people that don't have food or clothing.
Thank you.
Well, what about,
Ma'am?
did you mention about in this city? I'm sorry to interrupt, what the question, No, just in your mind.
Go ahead.
As you may, or, well, you probably know, you've sort of been labeled an anarchist. Would you claim yourself to be an anarchist? And if so, how does that affect us in this city? Benefit or?
I do consider myself an anarchist. I think
Can you speak
the
up? There's people back here.
Yeah.
Just, what's up?
I think that the picture that's been painted of anarchy is completely insane and nothing I've ever seen in my years of hanging out with anarchists and being an anarchist. To me, anarchist is about community. It's about helping people, about not relying on other people to solve your problems unless you have to. It's about, like, when your neighbor has a problem, when your friend has a problem, when someone you don't even know has a problem, you figure out what you can do to help them. If you have extra food and someone doesn't have any food, you share it. If you have extra water, and so on. I think, I call myself an anarcho-realist because I pay rent, I work a job, I own a business, I pay employees, I want to be a part of government. So I think, philosophically, I'm an anarchist, but in my everyday life, I live in the United States of America in 2016, and I participate in the system.
Thank you. Go ahead. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I saw your hand.
My question is for both gentlemen. I've just gone through, over the past several months, dealing with the city on a lot of building permits, multiple permits, right-of-way permits, construction permits, electrical permits, a number of different things. What do you feel are the strengths and weaknesses of the current process, and what, if anything, would you consider changing?
You want to go first?
I'll be honest, I don't know much about I've never built anything in the city, I don't know much about the building process here. I've had experiences in Colorado, not here. I think, ask me in 2 years after you elect me and I'll know more answers, but for now.
You know, from my perspective, things are getting better in our building department. You're able to get permits a little bit faster. You actually get them sometime this century, whereas before it was sometime in the millennium. Look, Lake Worth has been saddled with a lot of inconsistent codes and zoning, and then you had the personalities. People have been around for years and years and years and didn't do it the same way forever. And what we've tried to do here the last few years is try to bring Lake Worth, our building department, into the modern age. We've tried to upgrade it in terms of technology, GIS tracking, et cetera. We're streamlining processes. We're developing a culture of saying yes to people instead of automatically saying no, you can't do that. Because that's been an issue that has stymied growth and development, or redevelopment. I know development for some people is a dirty word, but it doesn't have to be. But that has stifled investment in this city because people couldn't navigate City Hall in the permitting process. But that process is getting better. Okay, it's not perfect, but it took them a long time to get to where they were from a negative perspective. Now we're moving in the right direction, and I think that you talk to anybody. In fact, one of the things I've just recommended to the city manager is we're going to do two things. We're going to put a big sign in the building department that says, we want your comments are valid. We're going to give them a survey. So when they go to get a permit, go through that process, they can rate the level of service they got, who they worked with, et cetera. And also a phone number, a hotline, if you will. If they have any complaints, it's going to go directly to somebody that the city manager is going to designate to kind of be that mediator, if you will, for bottlenecks in the process. Because there's no reason why we can't be as good as West Palm Beach. They've got an excellent system from what I can see at West Palm.
We got time for 2 more questions. Anybody else? Ramsey, just 1 more second, just because you're just trying to make everybody get in one. Go ahead.
I have a question that I've noticed over the years as I've been in Lake Worth for over 20 years. It seems, and this commission more so than the others, these you people on the commission, it's my perception is you always sign the paper and you get the deal, and then you tell us, well, now we're going to look for matching grants, or we're going to look for alternative ways to find the money to do it. And that was a deal breaker for me. You wanted to commit to all this money to do the roads, when I knew in the next 4 or 5 years we were going to have to repeat the whole process. But I was stuck with a 30-year commitment to pay for something that was a one-time deal. And I know there was lots of conversations about this, and people were like, well, if you'd broken it up and given us a piece of the cookie at the time, people probably would have supported, but you wanted the whole piece of the pie at the same time. And when you didn't get it, then the talk was, well, now we're looking for grants and stuff. I feel like there's not enough homework done before you jump in bed with coming to us for wanting money. And I want to know, why is that consistent with this commission, that you look for the money first and then you want to look for the alternatives where it wouldn't be such an impact on the taxpayers?
Well, I appreciate your comments, and first of all, there are a few things I want to point out that I think are not factually correct. One of the problems the city's had in the past is we've always had this let's go out and find a shiny object and make it look like we're doing something. So we go out and we'll throw some money at this consultant or that consultant to go do a study on something. Who knows what the study is, but we have a whole shelf of studies we've never had the funding to do anything with. They're just collecting dust. Okay, but at the time those studies were commissioned, everybody walked around and patted themselves on the back. Look at us, we're trying to do something. But they had no money to fund it. You're absolutely correct. The purpose of the 2020 bond was 2 or 3-fold. Number one was to take all those studies off the shelf, blow the dust off, and try to recoup some of the money we invested, and create an infrastructure program that encompassed all of the planning and the consulting that had gone into the previous 15 or 20 years that was still usable. Okay, and put it all into one, so instead of digging up a road today to put in, to build a new road, and then coming back 6 months from now and digging that same brand new road up to put piping or electric or whatever we have to put underground, everything would be done at one time in a more sensible manner. So no, we don't do that anymore. As far as the bonding is concerned, bonding, general obligation bonds, is the preferred way, the way across America to fund capital projects. Very few communities have the resources that they can go out and stroke a check to do these massive infrastructure projects. To your point about asking us to sign the check first and then we'll go out and look for grants, that's a message that somehow got lost in all of the discussion. We said we would like to borrow up to $63.5 million because we have a series of vehicles over here that we're simultaneously going to work towards in terms of grants or whatever the case may be, that will reduce that $63 million. That's why the question was up to $63 million. And as my opening comments, we spoke about the Department of Commerce. If we're successful in pulling that money down from Tallahassee, there's a big chunk of that $63 million that comes away from that original dollar value, which is exactly what we committed to you when we asked you to authorize the $63 million. So we've been very consistent and we've been very forward-thinking on that issue. And we have tried to do exactly the opposite of what previous commissions have done. I think we've been very responsible in our approach. It's just unfortunate that some people decide to hijack it and throw out allegations that why are we doing the Park of Commerce, which is a private, it's not a private development, we own those streets just like we own the streets in front of your home. Those streets deserve just as much attention and just as much maintenance as the streets in front of your home. Dixie and Federal Highway, Lake Lucerne, they all have businesses affixed to those streets, but nobody complains when those streets get fixed. So we all need to understand what we're dealing with here. And to your point, I appreciate and applaud you for making that comment, and you should always hold us accountable to make sure that we continue doing this in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Maxwell. One more question you have?
I had a follow-up for Mr. Hartman on being an anarchist and what it means to you. I lived here through a prior commissioner who was a self-described anarchist, and it was at best a mixed bag. What would your comments on Kara Jennings' candidacy and her mistakes be, and what would you do differently?
I don't know much better. I knew she ran. I know she was reelected, and I've talked to her about the way she felt about it, but I don't know what she's done that is like extraordinary or horrible. So, if you want to fill me in after this, I'll be glad to.
Okay, there's just some general chaos, a lot of arguing over chickens.
Thank you.
Type of thing.
One more question back here, and then we're gonna wrap it up.
Yes, I want to ask, Commissioner Maxwell, you brought up the issue of bringing electric rates down. There was discussion earlier about climate change, and obviously, market demand, so you bring rates down, consumption goes up. My understanding was after the commission changed hands in 2011, that there was a vote to terminate the Energy Conservation Assistance Program. And I want to find out, did you vote in favor of terminating that, or did you vote to support its continuation? And if you, and explain your position as to why you.
So is the question, did I vote for to eliminate that program?
Yes.
The answer is yes, I did.
Okay.
And the reasons are many. Number one, it was an additional cost to the consumer. Okay, a cost that was, everybody paid into, but only a few potentially benefited from. Because at the end of the day, the grant program that was part of that system only went to homeowners. It left out the renters, left out the folks that had rental property. Okay. The other issue was, I felt that there were some abuses out there because folks were getting grants that probably should not have gotten grants. Elected officials, their cronies. So there was a big reason why I voted to get around that.
Thank you. All right, we want to thank both of you guys for coming out, and anybody have any questions for them afterwards, please feel free to use the other half of the library. Thank you both for your